Let me move over.
Oh, so you can see the stupa?
Yeah. Good evening. We'll go on in about 30 seconds. Let me adjust. Lighting is yuck. That's better. I can't even read.
What, do you want the light?
No. It was in my face before.
Oh.
Wait, I heard that before. Darren, do lower the flame.
Where's Buddy?
Excuse me. Good evening. It's 7 o'clock here in the northeast of the United States, the frozen northeast of the United States. This is the Tibet Center, Kunchap Tarduling, a Buddhist meditation and study center located in northern New Jersey and New York City. And this is our twice weekly presentation of the Buddha Dharma, specifically stages on the path to enlightenment, the complete path, based on J. Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chenmo, great exposition of the path to enlightenment, or however you may. I'm moving around so you could see Rinpoche's stupa a little bit. Any problems with the sound or picture, please let me or Mr. Smith know right away. All the prayers we say are on the website. In the FAQ section, you will scroll down to prayers and find them there. If you have anyone who has passed away recently whom you wish us to pray for, please put their names in the chat box so everyone will see their names when we recite the Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels. So we'll start. Prayer for the spread of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems and of the truth of our pure selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West. For all the people living here, together with their near ones, who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them, may all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness, may they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. The Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once. The Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi which examines the dharmas, called profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, how should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge? And Avalokiteshvara answered, Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas and their natural emptiness. Form is empty. Emptiness itself is form. Emptiness is not separate from form. Form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus, all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor their wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequal mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed, Tayat Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhisoha. O Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world with its gods, humans, Asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One. Bodhicitta and refuge vow and refuge and bodhicitta vows, plural, that's it. With the we recite the verses 3 times. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Inspired by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind intent on full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So tonight, this freezing winter time, we have some nice warm Dharma. There are 3 components tonight. We will continue with advice, personal advice by His Holiness Dalai Lama from his book, Approaching the Buddhist Path, the first of soon to be 10 volumes on the whole Buddhist path. Then we will delve into the praise for dependent relativity or praise for dependent arising, the prayer we were asked by His Holiness to recite for the quick, as a cause for the quick return of Chung Larato Rinpoche. So we'll pick up where we left off on that, with the 3 types of self that we refute, from the gross to more subtle, to the subtlest. And then back to the good old Lamrim with both Geshe Sopa and Tsongkhapa's root text and Geshe Sopa's commentary. So that's the menu for tonight. Yes, you can get fries with it. Never mind. You can get whatever you want, but pay the price. This is from, I'll put it up on the board, 1, 2, 3, Approaching the Buddhist Path, Volume 1 of a soon-to-be 10-volume series. 9 are already out. A modern presentation of the Lamrim, if you want to call it that. And I said I would stop mentioning that, but I can't. I don't know. Okay, this is from page 236, and the heading is Cultivating Bodhicitta, His Holiness's personal encounter with Bodhicitta. Pardon me. His Holiness goes on, states, in 1959, Kunu Lama Rinpoche came to visit me, the Kunu Lama, big figure in Buddhism. At that time, he told me that his practice centered on bodhicitta, especially Shantideva's engaging in the bodhisattva's deeds. Around that time, I also learned about a short text Kunu Lama Rinpoche authored, The Jewel Lamp, a Praise of Bodhicitta. And knowing that my guru Ling Rinpoche had already received teachings from him in 1967, I requested him that he give me the oral transmission of that text. While he was reading the Jewel Lamp, I was overwhelmed with tears. It's 100 verses praising bodhicitta, something like that. We had it in Rinpoche, Chung Rinpoche gave it to us. And he asked us, if you want to attend my class, you have to read it 10 times. Some of us read it more to try to get a better seat, but it didn't work. In my 20s, I appreciated bodhicitta, but it seemed far away. In 1967, with Ling Rinpoche's permission, I requested teachings from Kunu Lama Rinpoche on engaging in the bodhisattva deeds. He accepted and gave the teachings in Bodh Gaya. After that, bodhicitta felt closer, and it became obvious that self-centeredness is the basis for fear and distrust. Interesting. Self-centeredness is the basis for fear and distrust, discovered by His Holiness. You wouldn't think this through. Conversely, if we genuinely care about others, even ghosts and spirits will eventually show appreciation. Bodhicitta is extremely powerful. When our basic attitude is altruistic, then even if anger arises, it leaves quickly. It's like our mind has a strong immune system that protects it from the illness of the afflictions. Around that time, I also studied another marvelous text, Nagarjuna's Precious Garland, and a few other supplementary books, and every day I thought about and meditated on them. Because I already had strong admiration and faith in Nagarjuna from contemplating his teachings on emptiness, even reading a short passage from his writings has a profound impact on me. And you might find this out yourself. Once you get immersed in it, go back and take snippets of different texts, and they'll have a big effect on you. In fact, texts you already read a year or two ago, oh, more meaning comes out. You'll find that out. Of the 13 great classical texts, and I'm not going to go through them, there's no here, I received the oral transmission on my tray as ornament of clear realization and Chandrakirti's supplement to the middle way from Ling Rinpoche, the predecessor of the current Ling Rinpoche. The oral transmission of the other 11 treatises I received from Kunu Lama Rinpoche. Our teacher here, Chungla Ratu Rinpoche, also visited Kunu Lama he was living in a Hindu temple in Varanasi, so nobody bothers me here. And Rinpoche took teachings on Shantideva's book from him and other teachings, which I wasn't told about, but I used to, other teachings, not elsewhere classified, whatever. A key figure. Kunu Lama was a Sanskrit scholar, of course he knew Tibetan, a yogi, very widely read. In addition to being a great yet humble practitioner, he was a remarkable scholar and teacher. I'm repeating what His Holiness was going to say. His teachings were very precise, and he could easily cite many passages from the scriptures from memory. When I asked him how he received this training, he told me that when he was in Kham, Tibet, he thought that texts were to be left behind in the sense of not clinging to physical books, although he was definitely immersed in their meaning, and it touched his heart. His translations from both Tibetan and Sanskrit were impeccable. When I received teachings on Shantideva's work, he often mentioned, the Tibetan translation is wrong. The original Sanskrit says this. Oh. I made these corrections in my own copy and incorporate them now when I teach the text. My teacher, Ling Rinpoche, was very kind to me. He would encourage me in my practice, telling me that if I put in effort, I could gain realization. But if I were to see Ling Rinpoche now, I would have to confess that I still have not attained these realizations, even though many years have passed and Ling Rinpoche has reincarnated. The current manifestation of Ling Rinpoche is the director of our center. We're very lucky. Around 1970, my feeling for, His Holiness continues, my feeling for bodhicitta became more intimate. After some time, I became convinced that if I had enough time to meditate, I'd become a bodhisattva within this life. However, I don't have sufficient time. That's my excuse. But for those with sufficient time, there's no excuse. This will be explained in a few minutes why he says he doesn't have this, he doesn't have that. Okay? I continue receiving teachings on bodhicitta and doing analytical meditation on it. Sometimes when I meditate on bodhicitta in my room, I am so deeply moved that tears come. During one period of my life, I would do lengthy meditation sections on bodhicitta and emptiness, and almost every day I would have strong experiences and be very touched. At the end of his Essence of Eloquence, the Tsongkhapa's text, Tsongkhapa says when he reflects deeply on what he has learned, his faith in the Buddha increases even more. When you make it personal and you realize, oh, it becomes personal advice, you have more deep admiration for the Buddha. Sometimes his recollection of the kindness of the Nalanda masters overpowers him with appreciation of the teachings on emptiness, and other times reflecting on the suffering of sentient beings overwhelms him with compassion. He comments that it is almost as if these two feelings were competing with each other. While I do not have Tsongkhapa's realizations, at times I too am affected by, in the same way as he was when reflecting on emptiness and bodhicitta, the two main elements of his practice, emptiness and bodhicitta. Now, when I teach about bodhicitta, I feel very moved. That means my mind is more receptive and has grown closer to bodhicitta. Compared to when I was 15, my understanding of these topics has changed considerably. And he's pointing out that that's what will happen to us too, if we stay with it. This confirms that the possibility of attaining awakening exists. Due to knowledge, examination, and some experience, my faith in the three jewels is firm and deep. The Buddha's marvelous teachings on infinite altruism and the wisdom of reality is indeed a living tradition. However, my experience of Tantrayana is lacking. During one period when meditating on tantric practices such as Guhya Samaja, I focused on the generation stage, which involves dissolving oneself into emptiness and reemerging as the deity. Take this as teaching right now, the essence of Tantra. Dissolving yourself into emptiness, reemerging as the deity. I would try to maintain a stable continuity of this visualization and develop single-pointed concentration on it, technique. When reflecting on the self, I would train to immediately think of myself as the deity, without any thought or appearance of the ordinary I. This is the practice of cultivating divine appearance and divine identity. So it's very clever here. In the middle of conversation, and all of a sudden bodhicitta, and all of a sudden deep tantra, the root of it, all mixed in. He's covering us totally. We're very fortunate to hear this in all the lives we had, to come up with this now. Wow. He continues on page 239. But in the late 1970s, I became very busy with my responsibilities to my students and the Tibetan community. Due to lack of time, I had to discontinue my long meditation sessions, and now I have fallen back to my previous level of experience. Born in 1935, I am becoming old. Maybe it is too late to practice much more. The Tibetan community in exile now has an elected government, and I want them to carry out all the governmental and administrative responsibilities. Finally, in 2011, I was able to resign my post in the government in the hope of having more time for practice. Yes, he's no longer any official in the government. He's just an inspiration. What an inspiration. But I still have many visitors and appointments. I can't refuse to meet the Tibetans who have endured so much hardship to come from Tibet to see me. I can't ignore them and say, I'm in retreat, when they have risked their lives to come all this way to see me. The purpose of doing retreat is to benefit others. Meeting these people brings some benefit to them, so this is part of my practice. I think the rest of my life will go like this, although I'm sad not to have the chance to do more retreat. My greatest source of inspiration is Shantideva's verse, as long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, so too will I abide to dispel the misery of the world. He lives it, and we should, join him in that choir. Whether I attain Buddhahood or not in this one simple existence is not important. I must at least benefit others, especially when they have problems. Bodhicitta compels me to do this. As your afflictions compel you to do things of bad habits that make you miserable, bodhicitta compels you to help others. Nice balance. My balance mother. Anyway, whether I attain on this, all right. Okay. The first Dalai Lama, Gedun Drub, the one who wrote the prayer we say every other Saturday, spent a long time in retreat. During this time, he had visions of white Tara and green Tara and wrote very moving and meaningful praises to them, which we recite one of them. After his retreat, he voluntarily began to do more work, some of it difficult and time-consuming. He gave daily teachings on different texts to his students, and he established Tashi Lumpo Monastery in Shigatse. By that time, he was already an old monk with white hair and a cane, but he was the architect and foreman who oversaw the construction of the monastery. He also sent people out to collect donations so the monastery could be built. Then, despite his age, as the manager of the monastery, he gave instructions on the daily operation of the monastery and the monks' discipline. The 14th is like the first. He's doing both in the world and in the spiritual realm. Amazing. Naturally, His Holiness continues, some of his students created trouble. What else is new? That's good to know. It's a timeless thing. You're going to come to a Tibetan center, you're going to have a lot of trouble. Obstacles are everywhere. Well, that's good. I feel better now. His Holiness continues, on one occasion, Gedin Drub became exasperated with them and said, if I had remained in Kangchen Monastery, I would have developed some high spiritual attainments by now. But I sacrificed that to come to this place to help you, to help the larger Buddhist community and a greater number of people. Although this may have sounded boastful, he was cautioning his students to be careful, to look at the big picture, and to appreciate that their opportunity to learn the Dharma depended on others. This whole place depended on Rinpoche's vision, rallying people, etc., and so forth, and all the teachers he brought in here. So we have to think. Centers depend on cooperation of others. One day, towards the end of his life, Gedin Drub said, now I am very old. He said it just like that. One of his main disciples then reminded him, it was prophesied that you would go directly to a Pure Land. Will you do that? Gedin Drub replied, I have no wish to go to these higher places. My only wish is to go to troubled areas where I can serve. That is very wonderful. That truly inspires me. That's him, by the way, 14 lives ago. However, the Dalai Lamas, you see one, you see them all. Never mind. He continues on page 240. The Buddhist tradition is a living tradition. If we practice, we can transform ourselves. It's not an academic museum piece. It's living, breathing. It helps you. His Holiness continues, this occurs not through merely praying, but through meditating, principally doing analytical meditation, understand, and then inculcate. Buddhist practices use our human intelligence in the greatest way to develop the maximum potential of a good heart. It's a powerful section here with a lot in it, smoothly expressed. Willingness to undergo hardship is the next session. It's like a page long. When we look at the life of our teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, we notice that he went through a process of spiritual development. Born as a prince, he later gave up the comforts of royal life and became a monastic in order to pursue his spiritual practice. He endured the disapproval of his father and the poor living conditions that his wandering lifestyle entailed. He also did 6 years of severe ascetic spiritual practice. After all this, he displayed the act of attaining full awakening. Cleverly stated, but we won't dwell on that. He displayed the act, he manifested. So, his life exemplifies the necessity to be able to bear hardship in spiritual pursuit. This is true of the lives of the teachers of many other spiritual traditions as well. The message we receive from the example of their lives is that we, as followers of these teachers, must be willing to go through hardship and persevere in order to realize our spiritual aspirations. Sometimes, on page 241, it says, sometimes the thought remains in the back of our mind, yes, the Buddha went through so many hardships to attain awakening, but I don't need to do this. Somehow I'll be able to attain awakening without having to give up the comforts and luxury that I'm attached to. Although we may not say that thinking in this way indicates that we believe we are more fortunate than the Buddha. While he had to go through so many hardships, we feel we can attain the same spiritual realizations without having to live ascetically and endure difficulties as he did. This is mistaken. The Buddha taught the middle way, His Holiness continues, a path avoiding the extremes of severe asceticism and heedless indulgence. Let's hear it for heedless indulgence. No, it's not. Nevertheless, we must be willing to give up the pleasures to which we are attached if we ought to penetrate the nature of reality and open our hearts with bodhicitta toward all beings, I think that's a lot better. Anyway, His Holiness continues, our priorities must be clear. Which do we value more? Our present comfort, security, present comfort and security, or spiritual liberation? So you do a little balance sheet on that. And think about it. First of all, spiritual liberation, what does that entail? The different levels of spirit. Oh, there's a lot there, isn't there? Yes, I see. It makes the physical comfort that we want now look silly, look trite, look ridiculous. Are we willing to undergo the physical and emotional hardships, His Holiness says, of relinquishing our attachment in order to practice the spiritual path? These are questions on which we must reflect deeply. Just says, yeah, I'm willing to do it. No, think. Think of what they really entail. Then you'll have the strength to have it flow easier. Each of us, His Holiness says, will face different hardships along the path. Take that as given. And some of you know this for a fact. For some people, the challenge will not be living a simpler lifestyle, but enduring the criticism of family and society. You decided to become monk or nun, and should have been nun, should have raised on and on, or a monk. You could have been a doctor, la. Others will face having to practice despite health issues, while some must deal with strong sexual cravings. We must develop the internal fortitude to persevere in our practice, no matter what suffering, physical, emotional, or mental, comes our way. That is really good advice and hard, but should be thought about. That's the story. He's not sugarcoating it. But here's a little tip. You're going to suffer even if you don't go on a spiritual path. I'm sorry. It's just as bad, if not worse, because there's no idea of a way out. So you just, overindulge and you blank out. When you think this out carefully, it becomes very clear, and it gives you a boost in practice. Let me check the time. Keeping a happy mind. That's what we need to do right now. Let's stop everything and keep a happy mind. His Holiness says it is important to keep a happy mind when practicing Dharma. Buoyancy, enthusiasm, and joy are needed to maintain our practice. These cannot exist in a mind weighed down by depression. Got it? That's important. People ask me how I maintain a happy mind and relaxed demeanor, even though I have been a refugee for over 50 years. One time, a news reporter was interviewing me and asked me why I wasn't angry, given the fact that I have witnessed so much destruction in my native land and to my people. I looked at her and replied, what good would it do to be angry? I wouldn't sleep well or be able to digest my food. Plus, my anger wouldn't change the situation at all. Hang on, think about that. He's giving you some of the faults of anger now in a quick pill. You won't sleep well, you won't digest your food, and you won't change the situation at all. So what good is anger? Your blood pressure, well, we can go on. I suppose she assumed that I would take the opportunity to tell the world about the sufferings of the Tibetans and the communist Chinese, and was astonished when I didn't. He saw the benefit of a teaching moment, and boy, did he bang it out. Thank you, Your Holiness. While we may sometimes experience happiness when the mind is non-virtuous, for instance, the pleasure that arises when our craving is satisfied. Yeah. Or when we have exacted revenge on someone who hurt us. Oh, yeah. That happiness does not help us on the path to awakening and should be abandoned. In any case, deep down, I don't think we are really happy then. And I think he's right. I think we want to do all these things. No. I think you would come to that. I think you know what he's talking about. He continues, other experiences of happiness are rooted in virtuous mental states. When I am generous and can relieve the poverty of others, I feel good inside. The ability to live ethically with a nonviolent attitude makes me rejoice and generates a sense of well-being. Having loving kindness towards others brings pleasure in the mind, and doing my daily meditation practice, which deepens my refuge in the three jewels, brings great inner satisfaction. It is also said that gaining meditative stabilization suffuses the mind with bliss. And when you attain calm abiding, you have pliancy, the body and mind are blissful. serviceable, etc. He continues, we are often distracted from the Dharma by sensory stimuli. Sensory stimuli. Attractive or repulsive sights, sounds, smells, taste, or physical sensations. Information coming through the five senses. But when our mind of attachment doesn't have enough sense stimuli, we are bored. People who are very involved with the external world of the five senses often find themselves in this predicament and are frequently dissatisfied. Whereas those who derive happiness from internal qualities, such as faith, love, compassion, wisdom, and so forth, experience much joy and contentment, never-ending joy and contentment. They are not swept away by the goings-on of people in the environment around them. Too much sensory input makes us exhausted, and our mental potential declines. For that reason, it is better to watch our mind. I don't watch television or explore the internet, although I do listen to BBC News on the radio, so I know what's going on in the lives of other sentient beings. Listening to the news becomes a kind of meditation on karma and its effects, and inspires me to cultivate compassion. Chung said, you read newspaper, you can understand the faults of anger, the faults of ignorance. But in my own practice, His Holiness says, I weed out unwholesome states that bring some sort of temporary polluted pleasure and instead put energy into cultivating wholesome mental states. Just the thoughts. That thought's no good. Throw that out. I'm listening to this thing again. No, this is what I should do. Yes. So you do this yourself in the theater of your own mind. You know how to do it. And no one's in there with you. It's you. You're on your own. This is Buddhism. So it's enabled, he said, putting energy into cultivating wholesome mental states enables me to keep a happy mind, which is important to continue practicing the Dharma, even in difficult situations. So I was not going to go a little too long, but this is a very important passage now. It has to do with telling people you realized or not, or does he have a realization or this or that, and why doesn't he answer when I ask, did you attain this or that? And Tupten Chodron puts a signature on a paragraph here too. It says her experience in this. So, realized beings is the heading of this little section. Some people have asked me whether I know people who have attained full awakening. How's that for blunt? Huh? You know any Buddhas? Any around here? Must be a New Yorker. Blunt New York. The Buddha stipulated that unless there is great purpose in revealing one's realizations, one should not do so. Speaking of one's own spiritual attainments is an infraction of the monastic precepts, and proclaiming realization that one does not have is a root downfall, such that one is no longer a monastic. You open your mouth with that and you're no longer a monk or nun. It's serious. That's why they don't say much. Falsely proclaiming one has realized emptiness is a root downfall of the Bodhisattva ethical code. Thus, proclaiming one's realization publicly is unheard of among true Buddhist practitioners. Yep. They're not Westerners, they're not actors and actresses, no. This isn't the business world. You don't blow your own horn. Nevertheless, His Holiness continues, I have had the opportunity to meet some people who have experienced extraordinary development and may be near Buddhahood. Meeting these people demonstrates that the teachings are alive and gives us great inspiration and determination. For this reason, refuge in the Sangha, the highly realized beings, strengthens our practice. And Chodron says, the Venerable Chodron says, in the remainder of this section, I, Chodron, would like to explain further why realized beings do not discuss their attainments, especially nowadays when people make great efforts to proclaim their good qualities and accomplishments. Oh, yes. First, speaking about attainments has a deleterious effect on our practice. Oh, I listened to Bodhicitta last night. The deleterious effect on our practice. As soon as someone begins to talk about spiritual experiences publicly, words begin to replace experience. That's a very weighty statement. As soon as someone begins to talk about spiritual experiences publicly, words begin to replace experience. The actual feeling of the experience fades in the mind, and we become expert in telling a fascinating story. This is very big. This is very, very precise and important. What happens when you blah, blah, blah? That inner thing that was developing is now becomes a commercial product. You can make a book and blah, blah, blah. Not what you're here for. It's we struggle for. No. It is easy to become arrogant and complacent if we attain celebrity as a spiritual luminary. For the sake of our personal practice, remaining humble and modest is best. Furthermore, spiritually immature people easily confuse an unusual meditation experience for spiritual realization. Interesting. You may have these flashes of this or that, or, oh, yes, last night I saw emptiness, blah, blah, yeah. You didn't, and you're proclaiming it. So even if their intentions are good, if they proclaim their spiritual prowess and begin to instruct others, naive people can easily be led astray and follow an incorrect path. Then, if the teacher's veneer cracks, the followers will be deeply disillusioned and may even abandon following a spiritual path altogether. Teachers who make no special claim to greatness avoid being transformed into false idols by their followers. Big point to remember if you're searching for a teacher, bear this in mind. Say someone's actual attainments were announced then publicly. Well, what would come of it? He's very funny here. This is very good. Many people worship that person instead of listening to their teachings. Imagine if the Buddha appeared in New York with a body of radiant golden light. People would be so struck by amazement that they would stare at him and wait for him to perform miraculous feats. The media would want to interview him, and soon there will be a new line of apparel named after him. She's got it down right. Thank you. I love it. Page 244. If someone has general and stable realizations, people with merit who are receptive will discern this and have faith in that person. True spiritual practitioner is receptive to things like that, to the real thing. So make yourself receptive. She continued, it is not necessary to advertise one's qualities. Someone who is a good cook does not need to proclaim his culinary feats at all. When he cooks a meal, people will know for themselves. Humble behavior is a sign of spiritual attainment. People with genuine realizations have no need for praise, reputation, and the glamour and perks that they bring. Their main interest is in stabilizing and enhancing their realization and benefiting others. In special cases, a teacher with close connections to a few students may reveal his or her spiritual experience in a confidential manner and in a private setting. Confidential and private, right? This may be to inspire those students who are already dedicated to the path so that they will put more energy into their practice. These students should be discreet with regards to what they have heard. While publicly discussing our attainments does not serve a good purpose, consulting with our spiritual mentor when engaging in intense spiritual practice is important. During a meeting, we relate our spiritual insight and experiences to the spiritual mentor, who will help us evaluate and understand them, and will give us further guidance and instructions. If a practitioner is in a strict retreat and her spiritual master is not nearby, she may discuss her meditation experiences with a trusted and experienced fellow retreatant to clarify and refine her understanding and avoid misinterpreting an experience. As such, it is important for spiritual progress. So we'll end it there. But that's very practical, good advice from Venerable Children. It was a hard worker. I hope she's healthy. It continues to be so. We'll now jump into some technical Tsongkhapa's praise for dependent arising, dependent relativity arising. Last time we went through the first two wrong views of the self. One, that it's permanent and independent, permanent, unitary, in other words, no parts, and independent. That is a learned one. That is not innate. The second one, more subtle, is the self is self-sufficient, substantially existent. The third and most subtle, which we'll talk about now, is the self is inherently existent. That's a misconception too. The final. So that's what we'll talk about now. This is from page 60. Yes, 60. Lighting is here. Tsongkhapa's praise for dependent relativity. And it relates to the verse that where they praise Buddha, teacher, guardian, etc. I think it's verse number 8 in the Kilti translation. But it's four lines, very brief lines. So this is the meaning of that. Perspectives on the lower school's views. Though the thinkers of the lower schools contemplate various levels of dependent relativity to reach their insights, this does not prompt in them the suspicion that the self altogether lacks inherent existence. Those first two understandings, oh no, it's not that. Oh no, it's not that. But still, they don't have the sense that it's all non-inherently existent. You know, like both feet planted firmly in midair. This is, think. When they refute the permanent unitary independent self, they refute any self having a separate nature from the aggregates. Yeah, I is here and the aggregates over there, and body and mind are over. No. Okay, we got rid of that. That's very nice. No one would logically do that. Only people who got mixed up philosophically would come up with that conclusion. Second, the next subtle one, when they refute the self-sufficient, from its own side type thing, substantially existent self, they refute a self from within the aggregates. From within the aggregates, okay, it's part of the mind-body complex. Yes, okay, we got that. That has independent control over them. Yes, I'm the captain of this ship or whatever. But when the consequentialists penetrate to the third subtlest level of selflessness, they understand that not just persons, but all phenomena, including the aggregates, have no, quote, own nature whatsoever. Yes, the self, not at all. Everything, the whole landscape is non-inherently existent. In complete contrast, the other schools say that form, feeling, discrimination, mind, and many of the items collected in the compositional factors aggregate are all substantially existent. In this way, they claim, a substantial foundation remains even if a person is only imputed. Yeah, the self is only imputed, but there's a rock that it's based on. They can show how someone who is only an imputed existence can still be reliably identified, since he or she is supported by the sound bedrock of substantial aggregates. Baba Vivek, that's his shtick. I think they'll mention that now. So for them, the basis for the imputation of the person cannot be imputed. Oh no, you don't impute that. Consequences so radical. Even the basis is not. So some noted scholars from these non-consequentialist schools make another interesting move. They accept some form of subtle mental consciousness. There's a subtle mental consciousness. Don't tell anybody. Keep it quiet. Yeah. A subtle mental consciousness. Different schools have different descriptions of it as a substantially existent self. There's the rock that we. The subtle mental consciousness is the substratum of mind that persists from life to life, even when coarser levels of consciousness shut down and the body is discarded at death. And you know from studying the Bardo teachings how, as we go through the dissolutions, the 8 stages at the end of our life, all these afflictions and everything is starting to be cast away, boom, boom, down to our pure nature, which we don't even recognize, and we go right up the ladder again with the gross mind. But they say there's still something that carries on, something solid, something there. Nikki would say, there's something there, they believe. He's right. The way he did that affected me. Baba Viveka, one of the renowned commentators of the Middle Way autonomy school, the Svatantrika, Middle Way autonomy, says in his Blaze of Reasoning, Tarka Javala, we also actually impute the term self to the mental consciousness conventional. Oh, yeah, we do conventional, not ultimate. No. A little tricky words here. Sign here. I feel like I'm in the ultimate salesman's room. No, because the mental consciousness takes rebirth. It is said to, that is the self. Yeah, you got to have something to carry on the karma. It's got to be there. Yeah. This is where it's hard to understand. I don't understand, but I'm reading from a book, thankfully, for all of us. But it's tricky. In effect, Baba Viveka is saying that only the ordinary self of everyday life is imputedly existent. Yeah, that's surface mind, blah, blah, blah. But underneath, the subtle mind, that's there. Where? There is among the aggregates, not of different character to them, There is among the aggregates, not of a different character to them, and not appearing as their controller, a subtle self, not manifest in ordinary experience, that guarantees that we are findable from our own side. There it is. Gotcha. Pay up. No. So for the lower schools, the object imputed must somehow be established from the side of its basis of imputation. There it is. It's on the base of imputation. And what are the consequences? So they blow up the whole thing. It was never there in the first place, by the way. Don't think that anything radical is being created. It was never there. We imputed a solidity or stability that doesn't exist. Strange. We have to negate something that's not there at all. How do you do that? That's the topic of the inside chapter of the Lamrim, the object of negation, la 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 la. Let me see what time we have. Ooh, boy. Tsong maintains two perspectives on the lower schools. It's very good advice now. It'll bleed us into the Tsongkhapa section next time. He chastises them for not getting right to the bottom of what dependent relativity is all about. No, take it farther. You didn't go. On the other hand, he acknowledges that the insights they do attain are valid and valuable, not off the point. You're proceeding to a more subtler level. So from that point of view, they're very good. And a lot of teachers teach that you have to debate from that point of view to really get it into your system, to really understand it for many reasons. And they will actually do this, I'm told, in the monastery. Fortunately, I don't have to get involved with that now, maybe in the next line. But let me let the text read. We don't have much time. Their attack is a direct broadside at the harms of cyclic existence, and so are not to be dismissed, but rather built upon. Yes, they're on the right direction. So don't get, it's nothing. No dismissive. Again, it's teachings of the Buddha. You don't ever denigrate any teaching of the Buddha, because all of his teachings are designed for one thing, to remove suffering. When we don't like to suffer, no one else does. So don't denigrate, what's the word? The remedy. I know. One way of explaining the four epithets for Buddha in the next verse utilizes the latter perspective. A wondrous teacher, refuge to a wondrous speaker, guardian. I bow to you who taught so well dependent relativity. The words are a little different. In a wondrous speaker, he said, and things like that in the Kilti translation. But we have the Kilti translation on our website. You're welcome day and night to look it up. In this verse, teacher refers to Buddha as the teacher of the lower school's tenets, which do not deny inherent existence. It's still called a teacher. It's necessary to go over that ground. Refuge is praised to Buddha for teaching the highest system of tenets, in which the inseparability of emptiness and dependent arising is revealed. Speaker refers to Buddha's teachings of the other school's views in accordance with the needs of those of lesser capacity. And guardian is a description merited by the ultimate protection of the teachings on dependent arising and emptiness, suitable for students of great capacity. Key point. We all have different levels of ability, and if we're given something that's too lofty and we won't connect to it, we'll get confused, or we'll make up our own situation, which everybody does. Oh yeah, that's what that is. So it's best to follow the step-by-step approach that's explained here. And all the teachers who teach in the Tibetan traditions, all the four sects, they're prasangikas. They go from the right point. They're all Mahayanists. They may display something else, a lesser vehicle for some people who need it. But this verse, His Holiness, Losang Gyatso and Reverend Woodhouse continue. This verse, the 8th, is the homage of the main text, just as the first verse was the homage of the introduction. Okay, that's housekeeping. In presenting two lesser views of the selflessness described in this chapter, we have introduced some of the many modes of dependent arising of the self. If we internalize and meditate on these facts, the next time we become under stress or temptation, we will be a little less likely to become seized by a bossy, self-satisfied, autonomous sense of me. There's the practical application. We're not just talking academically here. This is very important. So it's very practical. It's self-satisfied. It's the bossy. It's a troublemaker. It's who needs this? No. Such a notion of the self is a false notion that obscures who we actually are. When we act on the basis of a misunderstanding, we are not We are all too likely to act unskillfully and end up causing problems for ourselves and others. We're actually denigrating ourselves. We're not that. We have Buddha nature. The two venerables continue. When we assent to the appearance of ourselves as self-sufficient and substantially existent, it's easy for a modest sense of our own accomplishments to turn into pride. If we vainly display our knowledge, or if we proudly display our expensive possessions, people may find it harder to talk to us. But if we think more realistically about the many people who actually helped us build up that knowledge, or if we compare ourselves with the many people who are far better off than us, our pride will decrease. Yes, there's no one who stands alone is better than everyone. And everything you have depends on others. It's a big, ever-flowing mix. Though our knowledge will not have decreased, and the value of our house or car will not have gone down, people will find us less obnoxious. A little key, show off. No one likes to show off, especially when they don't have, and you do. As Buddha proposed, if we keep an authentic awareness of who we are, beings interwoven independent relationships with the impermanent aggregates, with helping causes, and with other people, we will be better aligned with reality, which in turn bestows peace of mind and creativity. Oh, all you artists, peace of mind and creativity. Yeah, that's what I want. Good. Let's be clear, the venerables go on, that in seeking an understanding of selflessness, we are not attempting to get rid of a sense of I altogether. I'm not here. Shut up. It is these glorified, exaggerated notions of the self that we must vanquish. And we carry it around inside. So look, examine it now. Say we mistakenly think Peter has stolen our watch, but later we find the watch where we had in fact left it. Hey, he didn't steal it. Our delusion is dispelled because the object it grasped at, Peter the thief, is refuted, and Peter remains with the overlay of thief removed. It's like that. The I remains with the overlay of inherent existence removed. We are not supposed to end up finding that we do not exist at all, or that we are somehow inexpressibly neither one thing nor the other. When we have cleared the wrong notions away, then the validly existent I will be seen for what it is, and our transformative potential for enlightenment will be clearly revealed. So, nice little section. We don't have time to get into it. Well, we could read a little bit of Tsongkhapa's Lamrim where we left off, just for the sake of hearing the good teachings. This is from page 180, a partless object, a subject. This is Lamrim Chenmo, page 180, volume 3. A partless object and subject, we were talking about unitary, a self, a primal essence, a divine creator. Such things are imaginary constructs put forward in the unique assertions of Buddhist and non-Buddhist essentialists. They don't exist, they're imaginary constructs. When they posit such, they do so after rational analysis of whether such things essentially exist. Oh, essentially means inherently, remember that. They think that this sort of rational analysis will discover these things. Thus, because they assert that these things can withstand rational analysis, they have to accept that others outside of their schools can perform such rational analysis in order to discover whether these things, quote, intrinsically exist. They have to discover that they intrinsically exist. When analyzed in this way, such things cannot withstand the pressure of inquiry by impeccable reason. No, you're looking for inherent existence, you're not going to find it. It's not there. Sorry. That doesn't mean the whole thing gets wiped out. No, but inherent existence is wiped out. That's the whole crux of the whole section. Thus, when reason does not find them, they stand refuted. For if they did exist, such reasoning would have to find them. We posit forms, sounds, and such only as they are known to conventional consciousness that are not impaired by internal or external causes of error. You have good eyesight, good ears, etc. Okay? We do not assert them as part of a system in which an analysis of whether they are mere conventions or instead have objective existence will find that they are essentially or intrinsically existent. No, we're not saying they're intrinsically existent. We're saying they're conventionally existent. It's the Prasangikas anyway. Me, I'm not there yet, but I'm acting. So, thus, rational analysis of whether they intrinsically exist is irrelevant. because we do not assert that these objects can withstand rational analysis. We're not saying they can withstand that they can't be here and functioning, etc. We're not saying that. We're just saying they're not inherently existent, which is an assumption we all have, that they exist from their own side, objectively, and not in cooperation with a designating mind. That's an assumption. Nothing exists that way. Of course, I think that way, but that's not good. Look at where I am. For example, if someone claims this is a sheep, it is inappropriate to analyze this claim by asking, is it a horse or an elephant? This is similar. You're asking the wrong questions. You're not even in the game. But we'll continue with that next time we meet, which will be next Tuesday, right? Yeah. The 23rd, I believe, right? And then Venerable Karuna will teach on the 24th from this very platform here at the Tibet Center, South Orange, New Jersey, at the parsonage. So I'm looking here on a little chat section. I don't see any names. Darren, I need names. No names. So consult. There's so many people we can pray for who have passed away in all the conflicts, including, gang warfare in New York City, et cetera, and so forth. Mothers who claim their sons' bodies. Ay, ay, ay. That's why we come here, to change this situation permanently. And it's possible. So let's get cracking towards Buddhahood. The Sutra of the Recollection of the Noble Three Jewels. By the way, this is our dedication too. You should always dedicate the merit when you do things. Right, Venerable?
Yes. Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Buddha, Bhagavat Tathagata, Arahat Samyak Sang Buddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strengths cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He is not stained by the realm of desire. He is not stained by the realm of form. He is not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus. His ayatanas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats, who arise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The Holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma, which is taught by the Bhagavat, is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the great jnana, they enter completely. They enter insightfully. They enter straightforwardly. They enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. The protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion, virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore, the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. I'll just move out of the way for a second to see you can see behind me with the nice colored kata. That's the stupa of Chularata Rinpoche with his relics there. Oh, thanks, Jackie. Well, this is in the way. Let me get this out of the way. And so this place is a shrine to him now. Offerings of oranges. He loved oranges. And hopefully they'll bring him here soon. So thank you so much for your kind, patient listening. Big love to all of you. Stay warm if you're in New York. If you're in Florida, you're already warm.